Discussion and possible vote on warrant article to acquire 2 Sandpit Road.
Jarek Worrell, DPW Director, and tonight we do have with us Brian Massa, our consultant with Horsley Witten. The town was considering purchasing a portion of Noon's 2 Sandpit Road, a little bit over $6 million for the 23 3/4 acre land. So the first phase really is just the visual inspection of the property. The second phase really is soil and water tests. So what we did was 11 or 12 test pits on the property for soil testing, and we did install 3 monitoring wells there. During the soil investigation, there was nothing that really triggered any kind of regulatory compliance items with the soil testing. In the monitoring wells, there was one that showed above drinking water limits PFAS. So everything down gradient of that, the other 2 monitoring wells were kind of downflow of that one that did not show any signs of PFAS in it. It was below drinking water limits. That being said, reviewing this with Brian and looking at the amount of PFAS that was in this one well and not seeing anything down gradient of there, we needed to determine whether that is the source or it's coming from somewhere else. This information about the PFAS being there was not disclosed to the town by the current owner, is my understanding.
Thanks, Jared. So we installed 11 test pits at the site, and we collected 9 soil samples, and we tested them for PFAS, for volatile organic carbons, SVOCs, metals, extractable petroleum hydrocarbons, PAHs, and PCBs. We also did the same testing for groundwater, except we didn't do PCB testing because we didn't find it in the soil. So this is the sampling figure that I just pulled up. So you can see the test pits, they're the squares there. We collected soil samples from 9 of those. The test pits went down to about 10 feet. As Jared said, all of the soil samples that we had collected didn't exceed any of the most stringent regulatory thresholds, including for PFAS. The monitoring wells that you see, those are the blue circles. We installed 3 of them. We collected groundwater samples from each of these wells. They varied in depth. They were all 5 feet into groundwater. We collected samples from MW1 twice. That's the one that exceeded for PFAS. And then as it traveled across the site towards MW2, the concentrations dropped where there were still detections, but they're less than the regulatory thresholds. We also tested the wells for VOCs, for petroleum hydrocarbons, for multiple other contaminants, and there was nothing else that was detected above regulatory thresholds. What Jared was alluding to earlier, downgradient property status, what that means is that a property has been affected by a release, but the property itself is not the cause of the release. We did a phase 1 investigation and we did a due diligence search. We identified no known releases at the site. We didn't find anything indicated that the site itself was the source of a release. So the fact that you see these impacts in groundwater at the furthest hydraulically upgradient edge of the property, which is MW1, which is where groundwater would be coming onto the property, and then the concentrations don't increase, they actually drop, meaning that the property itself isn't contributing anything to it.
And on sand, like average annually, just to give a little perspective.
In our snow removal budget, which you'll see later, is different every year, and that cost of sand can be anywhere from $10,000 one year in sand, depending on snow, up to as much as $60,000 in one year. And some of that dollar amount is salt mixed into that cost as well. So this is the first year we're going to actually do it for nourishment, and we're going to spend $25,000 this year, and that's going to be for the Pamela Arbor Jetty and for Beach Point.
I move to direct staff to work with town council and bond council to develop an article to authorize the purchase and borrow of 2 Sandpit Road. I just want anyone who's watching to be aware that this is an article that would have to be approved by town meeting.